live accordingly based on their status. Yeah, because some of them may not be understanding well. She knows, all he knows is HIV positive. But how to live, maybe how to take care of himself or herself, that may be an issue. Therefore, if we have such kind of projects where we educate them on how to live based on the condition they are in. That's one way of empowering them. Number two, still on projects, can we also empower them by maybe getting some maybe funds? And these funds is not giving them, but you begin projects where we have, which can help them to be to become self-reliant. Okay? Like now you get to know who they are and what they can be able to do. If it's maybe a farming, can you have such kind of projects and then they do farming as you assist them, and then at the end of the day, this person can be able that's even to take care of himself. Because there's no time you'll be there always giving money to him or to her. But if you begin such kind of a farming project where they come and they do, at the end of the day, they are able to earn a living. They can depend on themselves. Okay? And that way, I think they will now start seeing things differently, living positively. Because at the end of the day, if you look at a good number of them, you know, the moment someone knows I am HIV positive. Now, our sisters talked about stigma. I am HIV positive, and the people here don't like me. People don't want to associate with me. Already that's a stigma, which is going to hit really to him or to her. And that's how very soon you'll find this person dying. But then when we have such kind of projects and they are involved, then the issue that says the society does not like me, they have condemned us. I want to tell you it will disappear from them. The other thing still on empowering them, projects of empowering them, we have like orphanage homes where we have children who are, that is HIV positive. Now that is where maybe as a church we can pick some of these, maybe one or two homes where it's our duty. That is always there, maybe feeding them. Yeah, feeding them. We come up with specific days where we go as a church, we feed them, we take care of them. Someone has talked about loving. You know, when you go there, you mix up with them, you are there maybe the entire day. At the end of the day, as you leave, you have left something that we have people who are caring. And even maybe their condition, because of the love that you have showered to them the entire day, things will not remain the same. So in a nutshell, what I'm saying, as a church, can we look for a way of initiating projects that can make help them to be able to sustain themselves? And I think that to me will do us better. In the process, is when we'll also be getting now opportunity to be preaching even to them, having taken care of their needs first. Thank you.
Thank you, Elder. Yes, there's another hand there, but before you answer, Elder, what I'm gathering from Sister Fanny's is people should speak up and get to know within the church and get to know how they can be supported. And from Mama there, she spoke about putting our words into action. We have read books, we have done this and that, but going a long way to support these people. Elder Kabuka, on the other hand, has equally raised the same, that let us make these people self-reliant. Let us come up with income-generating activities to enable these people to maybe come up with funds and everything to be able to support them. And even as Elder Juma and Elder God are about to answer, I want us to clear this in our minds. Yes, I know HIV as a disease was initially associated with people of poor social economic status. True? But you know, we have people who are rich. Hata si ati wanajaribu. We have people who are already there. I think wanakaribia kufika. What do we call that state? Ile ya kina Manu Chandaria. Self-actualization. Is it that? That is ndio ilikuanga juu kabisa kwa ile sijui ni Maslow's hierarchy ama ni nini. There are people who have actually, sasa wao wanakuwa tu ni philanthropists. They are supporting people. So we have people who are HIV positive and are very well off. And unfortunately, I'm sorry to say this, but we tend to see that a lot of self-stigma. Yani, mimi ninajistigmatize because I'm the one who has HIV. Mnaona watu watasema hivi. Watu hawajafanya anything about it. And usually these are people who will access services in very private facilities that we know. These are the people who will have the self-stigma. Yes, back then we had a lot of discrimination, but mahali tumefikia saa hii, even those people who are of good economic status are also infected. I don't dispute what Elder Kabuka has said. I just want us to have that notion as well. It is not only people of poor social economic status that are infected with HIV. Thank you. Yes, Elder.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, church.
Good afternoon.
Now, I want to look at it a bit more differently. I think it's not right to stereotype, to create a group, then stereotype them, call them people who have HIV, and therefore there are special group within the church to be taken care of separately and in a special way. I think what we need to do, if we want to look at it as a group, then this group should be a wide group. A wide, like, I'll give you an example. In guys who are disabled, we used to have people called the disabled in this country. And then slowly, that name was changed. Now we have people living with disabilities. You know, the idea was to remove the stigma and the idea that they require so much support. So now what I'm going to propose is this, that we have something like, a wider group to take care of people generally who are not feeling, who have got health challenges. There are many people who have health challenges of different kinds. Even as we are talking right now, we have some people who are probably in the hospital wards, they are sick, and they require your prayers, they require your visitations, and they require to be taken care of in some kind of way. You can find someone who belongs to a church, is in a hospital ward, and stays there for a whole day, for a whole week, for a whole month. Nobody is visiting this person. And this is somebody who calls himself a Christian and who lives amongst brothers and sisters, people who could be caring in different ways. Possibly just praying from your house and mentioning his name in your prayers, or once in a while taking some things like fruits to this kind of a person. So if we have a group like this in church, a group which is a bit more active than we have right now, this group, you could probably call it people living with health challenges. So that you have, generally somebody maybe is just a lady who has gone to give birth in the hospital, for example. She requires visitation. We need, there are people who are sick, different kind of health challenges. They require this kind of support. So there are also cross-cutting issues. There are cross-cutting issues in the sense that the kind of support they require would be just the same kind of maybe, support in terms of affording their medication, then we can look at them as a group who require that kind of medication support. But the idea of taking 10, 20, 15 people together, lumping them in a corner, and calling that corner the HIV corner, and then you want to send support at that corner, I think you are going to create a big problem, and you will find that these people might, we need to give social support, make them, appear like, they are loved, they are a part of us, we are with them, we care about them in terms of what they may, there are those people, for example, who don't have even have food in their houses. They can't afford good food. So members who are able, the church members who are able, can bring some kind of, whatever you can afford. Some people can bring bunches of banana, like, maize, flour, support in church. Then you can find a way of distributing these things to people who need them, those people who are too sick to even go to work. We even have people, even accident cases, people who have had accidents. They don't have HIV at all, but they can't go to work because, they are indisposed. They are not able to go to work. So I think the group should be wider. It should be a group of people who are living with health challenges. They could, subdivide themselves into people who have this and that there. But it is not right to stereotype and to place people in a corner and then, give them a name there, then begin sending support to that corner. I think it's not right.
Thank you.
Thank you for the responses. The fight against HIV, it has come a very long way. And actually, the strategies that people were used, like 20 years ago, they might have changed. And even if you look at how the government approaches, I want to tell Elder Mirindo that even the government does not use that approach, that this is a group of individuals, now let us put them aside. The government uses what we call a holistic approach, and that is even encouraged here in the church. When the intervention that you give, or the approaches that you give, should be aimed at addressing many other issues of health, but within that context, you achieve that you have done also what? You have prevented new HIV infection. There are only two major concerns at the moment by the government and by the donors, and that should be the concern, how to minimize new infections, of which they have reduced drastically. Actually, they have reduced drastically, including the new deaths. Tuliambiwa that in 2004, almost every village was burying someone who has died a death related to HIV. But that has changed completely since what? Since the drugs set in. So the approach that people were using in 2004, as at now, it has changed. There's a program we call International Adventist. Let me just make a reference. Our church has a program. Just allow me to. It's called Adventist AIDS International Ministry. So if you go to the website of the church, you'll find it has outlined a number of activities. And the approach that America might use, or rather South Africa and Kenya, might not be the same. Like for them, they encourage that we need to identify a project to support for people living with HIV. So I want to respond like what Elder Mirindo was saying. We cannot have that project here in church. It says that to Kapa Kanisa, we have identified members. No. There are a number of children who have been rendered to be orphans, even the children home. One of the things that we're being told is that we need to collect, like items, even money, visit these young ones in the children's homes. So whatever we do there, remember, you can be an orphan because of even an accident, because of post-election violence, because of HIV, and because of many other things. So when you're going there holistically. So you can enlist that out of this, but you need to be having something that is driving you in mind that consciously we need to take care of the orphans, especially because HIV has been found to be the highest culprit. So it should be driving us, but at the same time doing what? Addressing those other needs. Similarly, we're being told that, like now, what the government is addressing is called what we call the triple threats of HIV. So you are dealing with the HIV as a disease. One of the things that has been found that contributes to new infections is gender imbalance. Like how do we take care of the girl child? The issues we call gender-based violence. They are very common. The rights that children enjoy, they are not the same as rights or other privilege that we extend to the young girls. So like here in the church, we have classes, we have groups, and I'm sure we have done a lot of work. If you go to the PowerPoint class, if you go to real time, me, I have sat in that class, and I'm one of the teachers. If you go to even adult lessons, there are those that talk about family life. We have had classes in real time, a whole topic that talks about issues about sexuality, how to handle relationships. So in that context, that's where you bring out those aspects. So you are not going just to walk alone, talking about HIV, but you bring it within that context. Like how do we counsel the young ones when they're joining relationships? Like people are transitioning to adolescence. Wakifika miaka 10 wameanza. Like here in the church, sisi kama wazee, sisi kama wakina mama, do we sometimes sit with the young ones just to give them that counsel, other than lesson discussion and the sermon? Like, do we have that man-to-man talk, woman-to-woman talk? Like, do we have these elders, these mamas? Like, do you sit with the ladies in the corner? You give them even stories on how you grew up, how you are ensuring dignity and other things, how you conduct yourself, how you handle other things. So those are some of the things, the unique thing that we need to find. Women ministry should come up with such kind of sessions that tend to educate people on matters of relationship and other things. So it's such a wide thing that it should be looked. But you see nowadays, in church, even if you see my child having a misconduct, unaogopa kumwambia, ama hata ukimwambia unamwambia cautiously, unasema ala, hii nikimwambia, I don't know what will be the response from the father, so you shy off. So at the end of the day, unaulizwa, then why are we here in church? Otherwise, God will hold us accountable for sins of omission. If I see my sister not doing the right thing, or my sister Deborah not doing the right thing, and I keep quiet, actually God will hold me accountable. So it should be quite holistic, and maybe it's high time as a department, maybe as a Department of Health, maybe it can go further and come up with some few strategies, some few activities that are holistic. But at the end of the day, within that context, you find that people are doing what? People are targeting new infection. But it sounds strange that our government is so much concerned about our welfare, whereas the church keeps quiet all through, from A to Z. That the government can be so much concerned in pushing us from a household to go to other places. And yes, in the church we have spiritual health, mental health, financial health, physical health, that we should be doing what we should be emphasizing. So the church is also being asked that when it's now sectoral, we should not just isolate ourselves so much. It can say about the second coming, whereas we are leaving out issues that are affecting people. Remember, it's being said that the reason as to why people leave church, it's not because they don't know the doctrine. If you ask all of us here about the second coming of Christ, we can't tell you. But it's because we don't find connection. We don't find I have a problem in church and no one bothers to even address it. I can miss church even for a whole month. I'm admitted in an hospital. If by good luck, any of the members, if by any chance I have not informed any of the members, it can be that even none of the church members done what is concerned. So that connection, that association, and that concern is what is required holistically to take care of our social life. And by that, we'll be able to be uplifted. Remember, the things that Christ addressed mostly were about food and diseases. Sijui kama mlipata Yesu akikaa class kufundisha watu physics. Kuna mali Yesu alikalisha watu kuwafundisha biology. He didn't. But Jesus used to take care of the needs of people. Treating leprosy, treating paralysis, people who are blind, and people who had all those kind of things. Hunger, thirsty, and what? Those were the two major. Then the approach of Christ is that once he has addressed those needs, he brings out the aspect of spiritual, which was his main focus. So that is how the church should be. And I'm happy. I've seen women in ministry doing a lot. Nimeona wakienda nje, wakifanya, wakipeleka nguo, wameenda kujengea watu, wamepeleka vitambaa. But I think Adventist men we can do more. Ama Brother Richard niaje. We should not do so much here in the church. Tunamalizia kanisa, we don't impact the community. Even the street children, what have we done for them? So that is the broad aspect that we need to look up. Thank you. Acha niachie wengine nafasi na mimi nikiendelea kutafakari. Thank you.
Thank you, Elder. A wholehearted approach to HIV. I'm kindly requesting if there's an adult up there, please kindly, to control the children that are moving chairs up there. Thank you. Yes, our sister, and I hope that this is so that we can sum up and go to the questions, if you have any questions from the congregations pertaining HIV/AIDS.
Okay, hello church.
Hello.
My input is that for a very long time, just like, HIV is one of the diseases that is not commonly spoken about in our churches. We don't talk about cancer and other non-communicable diseases. Just to answer your question, there was this question about what can the church do. HIV, people don't normally say that I have HIV, even to their closest families. That is something that happens. Even to you can find a married couple, someone is tested HIV positive, but they say they will not tell. So disclosure is a process that takes time for somebody, and we cannot force somebody to disclose the HIV status.
Yes.
So even in church, even if you trust your pastor, but if I don't want to disclose my HIV status and even join that group or support group where we have those people living with HIV, I will not disclose. So as a church, we have to understand that it is a process for somebody who is living with HIV to disclose the HIV status. So my thinking is that as a church, we can have activities, even from the children ministries, the pathfinders, the youth, even the men, the women ministry, where we can incorporate activities that allow people to speak about HIV, and not necessarily announcing that we have groups or we have people living with HIV who are supposed to meet maybe probably on a Sunday at this hour. But just say we can welcome people, that today we are organizing for an activity, and it will be interactive and allow people to speak about HIV. Because you find that I'm happy because for the first time in this church, we are talking about HIV awareness. And this is something that we should continue doing, and as other activities, where even when the children come here in front, when they're singing, we can have role plays, activities that we can see stories about HIV through the role plays that the children will be playing. So another thing is that we are even in the Ministry of Health right now, there are so many changes that are taking place. And if such activities are allowed to take place in church, then the healthcare workers can sensitize the church on the new developments and guidelines in the HIV department. For instance, right now we have integration, and I believe there are people who have worked in a facility and have been tested. And when you are tested, you are told there are specific places where somebody is supposed to take their ARVs. But right now, there are changes that are taking place where we want to allow people to be seen everywhere, every point where you maybe see a clinician for consultation and all that. So that this is an approach that the government is coming up with, so that we do not stigmatize from our end, but allow people to understand, allow those people even living with HIV to not feel that they are really a special group, but also normal people in the community. That's all I have to say.
Thank you for all your inputs. Let us speak up. Let us not stereotype. Let us be free to share our challenges with each other. Let us support those who do not, those who are less fortunate, whether they are HIV positive or negative. That is a wholesome approach to all this. But one thing I want us to also remember, that stigma and discrimination comes in when we as Christians will go a long way when someone discloses their status, or you get to know someone is HIV positive and you go about talking about it. You go around talking about it. In fact, hiyo ndio tu kitu peke yake. How comes nikikwambia niko na diabetes, will you go telling every other person nani ako na diabetes, nani ako? Where is it that when it comes to HIV, it is different? And let me just share something here, a reading. This is from a research that was done in regards to HIV and AIDS in Seventh-day Adventist community. And these were the recommendations, that just as the time, that today we are guilty of practicing social isolation to HIV, AIDS, and cancer patients, the way the Jews did to the lepers. Just at the time when they need to have a loving touch, a hug, and a hand to hold them through the entire process, having known their HIV status, is when, or even a pat in the back from a family member or a friend, they experience distance and isolation instead. This situation becomes worse when their medical condition gets into the critical stages. Some have even been completely deserted. Let me give a story. Not a story, it's an experience that I've come across anyway. A few months back, we were discussing with fellow colleagues at work, and while someone was in their business of testing patients in the wards, actually it's not even just a few months, it's something that has happened, and it really sometimes hurts me when it has to be a child aged around 3 or 2 or 5 or 4 who ends up suffering and even eventually dying because the parents, and let me say in this case, the mother, did not decide to take the drugs on time. And you see, it's either all about the isolation that is caused, that we bring about as a result of stigmatizing these people, or it could be that as an adult, I got tested and I did not accept my status, and maybe I got pregnant along the way, I gave birth, and around 2 years later, I have stayed with this child very sick. By the time they are being rushed to hospital, there is little that can really be done. And we end up losing such innocent souls. We have case scenarios where a mother anakataa hataki mtoto wake apewe dawa. The child has been tested, amekuwa HIV positive. The mother already knew her status and decided to stop the drugs some years back throughout her antenatal clinics, postnatal clinics, and the child is now around almost turning 2 years. The child is brought to the facility with cancer of the eye. Na bado hataki huyo mtoto anzishwe dawa. That is how bad the picture is. And you see, 1981 to date is around 43 years, si ndio? Na tunataka to eradicate HIV by 2030. We still have a long way. Sometimes Elder preached about yesterday about the danger of being complacent. Yani, tunaona tumetoka mbali, penye tuko sahi, everything is okay, until we tend to relax. Sometimes we've had to take measures of taking these people to the children's department. Tunawashtaki. Because as a right, yes, I have a right kukataa kumeza dawa, but I do not have a right kuzuia mtoto wangu apewe dawa. And that is the only thing that sometimes inafanya hawa wamama wanakubali watoto wapewe dawa. And we have lost a number of children. Ni wengi. We have lost them. And sometimes it is very sad. It is very sad all the time. We are having infections in children aged between 15 and actually adolescents and young adults. Kisumu is leading in the number living with HIV, followed by Homa Bay, Migori, and some other counties. So we are still not in a safe space, but that does not mean that we have the highest cases of infection. That is the number of people living with HIV. But then again, if we tend to be too comfortable in our seats that tumefika, we might have made 100 or 50 steps, but we might find ourselves going back 100 steps to where we were back in the 90s. The horrific, terrible picture that still remains in my mind to date. So let us be vigilant. Let us know our status. Let us go for the tests. Let us be positive-minded, living positively. Let us support those with HIV in all the ways that we have said. We are not going to stereotype, no. But as Christians, let us extend the love of God that we tend to preach. And that is why in the book of Matthew chapter 25, our verse for this afternoon, a time will come and the king will say, then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you fed me. You gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison, and you came to visit me." Let us put what we have learnt, our words, into actions. Let us support people. I'll talk about people living with HIV because today is HIV Awareness Day. But if it was just general health emphasis, we'll be talking about all the other illnesses. Let us support each other. And so as a church, those are the responsibilities that we have, and those are the different ways that we have to support people living with HIV. I just want to open a session of, I think 30 minutes or less, depending on the number of questions we have. If you have any question, and a disclaimer, it doesn't mean when you ask a question, it means you're HIV positive, no. If you have any question or anything that you need demystified about HIV/AIDS, please feel free. Maybe I can see by a show of hands so that we can have the mics come to you, and then I think we'll call this an afternoon session. So we have one. Anyone else with a question pertaining HIV? This? Yes, those are two. Richard, Elder Moturi. Any other person? Okay, thank you. You can give to Elder Moturi first. And I'll throw this back to the healthcare professionals in the congregation to answer the questions.
My question is, I don't know, I've been following up these infection rates of counties. I'm not very sure what I've been seeing is the correct picture, because at most of the times, earlier on it was either Siaya or Homa Bay leading. But and the Kisumu numbers were earlier on were preferably at a lower numbers than what I am seeing. I don't know what about at least you as experts. The number of Kisumu has gone up drastically, very big, 135, almost 136,000. That is the people who are living with HIV. I don't know the spike. What are the factors which led for this county to reach that number? As health experts, at least these things have been discussed. Can you give us a clue what is happening?
Thank you. Do we have, okay, let's take Richard's question and then maybe we can answer those. Elder Juma, I'm assuming you'll respond to that. Yes.
Praise God.
Amen.
The question I'm asking is not technical to me, but it may be technical to the members who are not healthcare workers. There is something I'm seeing happening wherever I practice. You see, a female has come. I don't want to say a woman. Female has come to the hospital and she's serving two. How do we call them? She has come with a child and she's come for clinic. So she's having two books. One reveals her real HIV status. The other one, in fact, is the one that is given to the husband to carry. It is positive, it is negative, it is not showing anything. So the lady takes drugs and the children are taking drugs secretly. But the man does not know. It is happening many times. And it really hurts me, and I think it hurts me and others. How can we help those people who might have found themselves to have gone outside the, how do we call it? Outside the marriage covenant, and they found themselves with that disease, and they find it difficult to reveal to their spouses. This happened to both men and women. I don't say that maybe the women only. Even men always try to hide. Some are taking drugs, but they don't tell their spouses. So kindly tell members that just in case somebody may find him or herself in that manner, what should they do? So that, because if you're taking drugs and the other one is not taking, it's quite unfair, and bad things may happen. How may we assist the public on that matter? Because many people are hiding because they fear the outcome. Should they disclose that to their partners? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone who wants to respond to what Brother Okoth has raised as a question? Just before Elder Juma answers Uncle. Sawa.
Yeah, thank you so much for the questions. Maybe I can give an attempt in responding to what Brother Richard has asked. When one is tested HIV positive, this person should be linked to and enrolled to care and treatment, and should be started on ART, antiretroviral therapy, immediately. And if this person is married or is living with under the care of somebody who is an adult, then at the health facility level, we normally encourage that it is better and it will be well for this person to disclose to anybody at home. I mean, if this person is not married, we normally encourage that it is better amongst your family members, at least, even though you will not be able to be comfortable to disclose to any other family member, at least there is one person at home whom you are very close with, who is very close to you, or a confidant who will keep that information So at least you will get, amongst your family members, at least you will get one person whom you can disclose your status to. Then secondly, Brother Richard, is that at the facility level, where there are counselors, HIV testing counselors, or the HTS service providers, there is another provision of something called, an intervention called assisted disclosure. Assisted disclosure here, I refer to a session where you can talk to your spouse, maybe you are HIV positive, and maybe the status of the HIV status of your spouse is unknown. You can invite your spouse to the facility without mentioning that we are going for a HIV test. And immediately, two of you come to the facility. Now the professional or the counselor at the facility will engage both of you and will help you to disclose. This professional already knows your HIV status. Maybe you are HIV positive. And by knowing prior, will enable him or her to prepare so that when both of you comes to the facility, at least the professional will assist you by doing that intervention called assisted, counselor-assisted disclosure. And there is a professional way that this will be handled to an extent that maybe if this counselor will foresee that there will be a conflict, or there is, there is a perspective of having you people having a conflict back at home because maybe of a different HIV status after the session, then the professional will find it wise to handle it the other way. So what we normally encourage for such couple, we call it discordant couple. Maybe one is HIV positive, another is HIV negative. The positive one will invite the one who is negative or with an unknown HIV status to the facility, and the rest of the work will be done by the counselor who will handle the session professionally. If the counselor feels like maybe there will be some gender-based violence back at home, or there will be some conflicts back at home after the session, then there is another way he or she will handle that session. So it is something that it is not cast on a stone that you go back at home and disclose anyhowly, knowing that the outcome may not be so well with you. Then finally, on the same point, on the same breath, I would wish to encourage that there is a test kit that our sister Edna alluded to it. It is called OroQuick, or it is called self-test kit. As we all know, all of us will agree, adults in the house, that with men, our health-seeking behavior is very poor. That is the fact. You even go to the outpatient department at the OPD and see the number of men who are seeking health services at the outpatient versus the number of female or ladies who are seeking for health services. There is a big gap, or there is a big difference. Our health-seeking behavior as men is very poor. And so one of the things that informed the government and the Ministry of Health to bring, and WHO to bring the self-test kit on board, is to reach out to many men, quite a number of men who are not comfortable of coming to the facility to seek their health-seeking, to seek for health services. So the spouse can pick the self-test kit, and she can go with it back at home, so that they may test together as a couple at the comfort of their home. So I just want to encourage men in the house that there is something in us called the fear of unknown, that you fear to be HIV positive. Who told you that you are HIV positive? You will test, and definitely we will get at least one HIV result, either HIV negative or positive. But be rest assured that whatever the outcome, you will be able to be assisted, you will be able to be supported, and the service provider at the facility level will work with you through through that journey. I know when one tests HIV positive, this person juggles with so many things. How will life be from now henceforth? How am I even go to disclose to my spouse, or how am I going to live with my other family members? You know, with that fear, when you test HIV positive, when you go back home, you yourself will start to isolate yourself even from your family members. But what we normally encourage is that after knowing your HIV status, just be rest assured that you will be supported. The service provider will work with you through that journey. The fact remains that you will be coming for your clinics after maybe 1 month or after every 3 months. And the clinician or the nurse or the HTS provider who is at the facility will be able to ask you questions how you are moving on with the new with your non-HIV status since you were tested. So I just want to encourage all of us that it is very important to know your HIV status on time. First, it will improve your access to health care. Then, before I sit down, maybe this is my last time to stand here and speak. I just want to share briefly that there are recommendations that are made for us to go for a test. If you are a general population here, it is recommended that you go for HIV test after 2 years, all right? If you are tested in the year 2022, it means by the end of the year 2024, you are eligible to take another HIV test. Then, for pregnant women, you will be tested at the first trimester. That is the first contact of antenatal clinic. When you begin your antenatal clinic, you will be tested. You will be tested only if your HIV status is unknown. Or you tested last time and it was HIV negative. You will be tested. Then at the third trimester, between 28 weeks to 40 weeks, or between 28 weeks to the time that you will deliver, you will be tested in between that time. We call it third trimester testing. Then, during labor and delivery, maybe you will be recommended for another test. Then when you bring your child for the clinic at 6 weeks, you will be tested. And then at 6 months, when you are breastfeeding, you will be tested once again. So maybe I can stop at that. After every 2 years, all of us are eligible for a test. When you were tested last and the result was HIV negative, you are eligible for a test after every 2 years. And again, when you go to a health facility, there are questions that you will be asked. And these questions are asked so that the service provider may determine or may know actually if you meet the eligibility criteria for you to take another test. Otherwise, thank you for that.
Thank you, Brother Francis. Just an input. It is 2 years only if you are not at risk. We have people who are at high risk of becoming infected. Cindy? Yes. If I am in a discordant relationship, my spouse is HIV positive and I am HIV negative and my spouse is not taking their medications right, I am at risk if I do not have any interventions hapo katikati. And that is why I talked about PrEP, a pill, a tablet. PrEP stands for pre-exposure prophylaxis. A tablet you're given to prevent you being at high risk of HIV from contracting HIV. And other than the discordant couples, we have another category of people who also take those drugs. And these include the female sex workers, the men, MSMs, we call them MSMs. And there's a category of people who are eligible to take the PrEP. So the 2 years only happens if you are at almost no risk or low risk of contracting HIV. That was one. Two, another input on your question, Brother Okoth, is why is this woman fearing to disclose her status to the spouse? Sini GBV, gender-based violence. Anaogopa tu akifika nyumbani, she might receive some panel beating before she's thrown out of the house with the children. I remember a case in a facility I worked before, just here in Kisumu, and is still the case to date. A woman who had been taking medication, yeye na mtoto wake mmoja from a previous partner, and now she's married to another man, na huyu mwanaume ni polisi. Na ako na watoto wawili na huyu mwanaume. But for almost 8 years, she has never disclosed, and she said she will not, because of what she hears this man saying. Anasema vile mi usikia huyu mtu akiongea juu ya mtu ati akipata mtu akona virusi or something of that sort. So you see, still there is that discrimination, there's still that stigma, and we are seeing even cases of gender-based violence. Sasa ikiwa huyu mama anajua atafukuzwa nyumbani, it is because she's not receiving the support she needs. So once we go to offer the support, if we support people living with HIV/AIDS, and support means people are living as discordant couples. Watu wanaishi tena vizuri sana, and I've seen marriages working. People almost 8-9 years in marriage have HIV negative babies. One is HIV positive, one is, spouse moja ni positive, mwingine ni negative. We have couples who are both HIV positive, and they get HIV negative babies. So it all goes back to the stigma, the isolation, the gender-based violence that comes out that is being meted on people with HIV. Anko's question, Elder Juma, are you in a position to respond? Anko asked that he's seen some statistics that Kisumu is leading with 135,000, and in the previous years he has seen Siaya, or is it Homa Bay, leading. And if it's the material that I saw in the group, in the WhatsApp group, that is the number of people living with HIV/AIDS. But Elder, you can respond to that.
Thank you. That number has not changed so much. What determines the percentage? If you look at the general population of Kisumu County is higher than Siaya, Migori, and I think even Homa Bay. So even if you look at the number of registered voters, the people who vote in Kisumu County compared to Siaya, there are many. So it means when you look at the numbers, what you call absolute numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, Kisumu has always been having higher numbers, around 120,000, 25, 28, now around to 130,000, but it keeps on changing. But in terms of percentage, Kisumu is around 19.2%. So even if you go to Migori, Siaya, and Homa Bay, Kisii, you'll find that if Kisumu is at 19.2, Siaya is at 19.1. I think Homa Bay was slightly higher some times back. So what I will say is that as long as we have an effective treatment, as it is now, we have very effective drugs. And in fact, new drugs are coming in. So don't expect HIV deaths, related deaths, to be so many, unless mtu amekataa kumeza dawa. But whoever is taking drugs as required, they live quite a number of years. So that percentage is likely to remain 19 point something percent for so many years. Because we don't have new deaths, unless new people are born, wamezaliwa wengi, so the general population increases. Now the denominator, wale watu wa statistics ama science, the denominator inakuwa kubwa kuliko namba ya juu. That's when that percentage will change. But again, when you look at the new cases, what we call the incidence rate, how many out of 100 people tested new, how many turn positive? It's around 2%. 1 point something to 2, ikienda kabisa ni 3. So it means if you test 100 people, average you're likely to find around 2. Maybe friends can confirm that. Compared in the past, whereby you could test 100 and find even 7 positive. So the numbers have reduced, but again, as some have said, there are still practices that we need to take care of. Wajua wewe ukitoka hapo unaenda unaingia kwako, unakuja church. Ujui kuna watu wanakesha mahali, people inject drugs. Ukienda kama Mombasa kuna watu mtu anatoa damu kwa syringe anajidunga. So we still have those practices. Now the society has changed. Some people are encouraging men to do what? To marry men. I remember when Richard was saying that he doesn't want Democrats to win election in America because they encourage what you call
same-sex marriage.
Same-sex marriage. And I've seen those clips, those who have seen Trump speaking about that. So we still have people encourage those things to do what take place. And those are some of the practices that do increase. Ukienda hapa, ukipita hizi streets hapa Kisumu usiku, ndio Kisumu is an urban. Ndio nakwambia wewe kama unaingia kwako unalala mpaka asubuhi unakuja church, you've never even watched some news. You guys you saw sometimes what was happening in Koinange. So we don't say that those are the cases that bring in new infection, but what we mean is that there are still practices in the community that are still bringing new cases, however small they might be. So as much as the government is doing those things, that's why it's calling upon the church to also support in bringing in the spiritual and the counseling aspect. So in summary, what I'll tell Elder Muturi, Kisumu's numbers are not so much alarming given the total population. The growth is normal. It's what is expected. And new infections actually have reduced drastically, including new deaths. Have reduced by 69% from 2004. Right now, the entire world last year, the number of people who died were 630,000. 630,000 compared to 2004 when 2.4 million people died. That is a massive number. 2010, around 1.2 million people died. I think last year in Kenya, we had 17,000 new infections. 17,000
in 1 year.
In 1 year, and deaths were around. Then they were almost around 20, almost around that number. So it means it's almost the same number of new infections and deaths. Ndio maana the percentage will always remain the same. Compared in the past, whereby you could have very many new infections and high deaths. So the graph was skewed. Thank you. I think that's what I can say as a summary. Maybe you can answer more if it's not clear. Thank you.
Thank you, Elder. I think our takeaway home message today is, let's get to know our status. Let's get tested. Let's live positively, either HIV positive or HIV negative. Life has to go on. Hakuna tofauti ya mtu aliye na virusi na yule asiye na virusi. People live the same life. Thirdly, let us support one another. Let us avoid maneno ya stigma and discrimination. Don't talk, hata kama sio HIV, don't talk about someone's illness. If someone has come to you in confidence as Christians, let us extend the same love and compassion and mercy and kindness that Christ extended to those who came to him for help. help. Sindio, he never turned away anyone. With his compassion and love, he was able to heal each and every person. And lastly, you never know. Our God is a God of miracles. Sindio? See, leprosy had no cure then. It is only Christ who could heal and all that. You never know. We have injectables coming in. God might just use his people, might just use the scientists to bring out a cure. I think I read somewhere, I can't remember ni wapi, but let me just confirm. There is hope. There is usually hope at the end of the tunnel. I think I read somewhere of a cure. It must have escaped my mind. There was one case that wanasema was cured of HIV. I think in Europe or in the US, but this is someone who had, I think, stem transplant, something of that sort. It was someone who was suffering from, I don't know whether it was cancer or something. So there was a surgery or an operation done. I think it was a stem transplant surgery of that case, something of that sort, and that person was declared HIV negative. But I'm sure that is something that is very expensive. But God works in mysterious ways. You never know. One day, one time, we might get a cure for HIV. Sindio? Yes. So, being there, no question. I hope I've not locked anyone out. I want to thank you for being an interactive audience. I hope you have learned something. And at the end of it, let us support one another. I'm going, Elder Mobisa, just as we come to a close. Someone with a mic kindly to assist our elder.
I'm just thinking aloud, something which has crossed my mind. Okay, of course, this is HIV Awareness Week, but I was just thinking about the health department. Maybe we can also have some time, maybe sometimes later we talk about diseases like cancer. Cancer is nowadays is a killer disease. It's not much deadlier than even HIV/AIDS. Maybe we should have something session about it.
Sawa, that is taken. It's just that this was a HIV awareness Sabbath. We have a health emphasis Sabbath, and the other Sabbath is, we have 2 more Sabbaths for health, one in December and another one in January. If that is something that you would be interested, we can try and look for people who can probably talk about the same. Yes, so may God bless you, even as we continue living positively in this world. Amen.